Hey traders, this is Christian from Market Trade Group, and it is Thursday, February 13th, one day before Valentine's Day, one day before Friday. We've got a big 3-day weekend coming up. So let's look at how we did in terms of performance today. I think coming in today, very headline-driven market from overnight based on the coronavirus. I think everybody knows about that already. Numbers coming out of China much different than what they were previously reporting. So what did that do to markets? Kind of gave them a little bit of a breather, an excuse to sell off a little bit. You could see that we did finish down slightly for the day. SPY finished just barely in the red, but yeah, just down about 10 basis points. Q's also finished down just slightly on the day. But you could see that there was some bounce from where things opened this morning and gave you a few trading opportunities depending on what you may have picked for the day. Small caps had the outperformance of the day. They finished up positive for the day, and they rallied the most. So a little bit, something new there. Let's talk a little bit about the IWM chart. We'll talk a little bit about Nvidia earnings too. But tougher things to really get going to have a huge range for the day. From my charts, looking for a break over value, it did do this, but you just didn't have that much of a move thereafter. 167 and a half to about 168.69. So okay for a stock trade. For an option trade, very hard to make money in something that incremental. But so it's nice to see this get above value in a couple different places. Remember this VPOC that was taken out? That's as far as IWM went. I mean, somebody just asked me on Twitter. They're like, and I mentioned VPOC. What is a VPOC? It's a virgin point of control. It is where buyers and sellers have previously met up before, but have not returned. So it's kind of a little bit. It's almost like the same principle of a gap, right? So these things often they get filled. Essentially, they get taken out, and a lot of times we see this, right? Price seeks them out, and then a move back. So we're now back above value, believe it or not. That's been the whole thing with these small caps is that they've been in range now for the last couple weeks inside value, and they're now poking its head above value. So I think that'll be interesting to watch tomorrow. We'll see if that can carry through to here. Here was speaking of, just to go off topic, Roku, which reported earnings. They beat their guidance was fine, but they're still reporting a loss, which seems troubling to me. So notice that there is a VPOC taken out down here. That's exactly a good example of how these things work. Price literally seeks them out, and sometimes you get a complete reversal off of those virgin point of controls. All right, so we'll go back. We'll talk about a couple other things here. So, again, buyers continue to come into this market. A couple things that I'm going to talk about here for a minute. Utilities were one of the best performers. FANG stocks also. Probably two areas that have less exposure to China and to coronavirus. Kind of funny that those two were the biggest movers from the open today. Internet stocks and utilities. Interesting. But a bunch of other groups did pretty well today too. The semis, even before the Nvidia move, AMD was really strong. It seems like whenever this AMD is down, look at where this thing opened. It didn't waste any time from the open. Just bang through the value area. Again, slight. Another thing to notice here is the width of the value area, very narrow. Price can pass through these value areas like a hot knife through butter, basically, when they're really that thin. So interesting. And then move up to 55 after hours, being helped by Nvidia. So all in all, not bad. The performance, the way kind of things went for the day. Option activity, we saw some Paycom calls further out. I think that was September, I believe we saw Paycom calls, Starbucks calls, FireEye. I did not take any of these FireEye. A couple of traders in the Tribeca Trade Group room, executed wonderfully. They bought the rumor, scalped, and took some out. There was a rumor today. It seems like this goes on with FireEye, like literally once every 6 months. Somebody buys calls. There's a rumor that's floated that somebody's interested in buying them. Then later somebody denies it, and the stock returns back. And everybody forgets about it until 6 months later, somebody does the same trick. So it's really like I didn't play these because I've seen this happen probably like 4 or 5 times now with FireEye. But if you're quick and you can scalp, uh, you can get in and out. And I think by the end of the day, the way that this thing reacted to the rumor was a great place to sell. So I think calls came in here. And the stock was at 1560. So the thing did move about a buck. And if you bought some out of the money calls, you made a little bit of money with that. So, but crazy how that works with FireEye. Literally once every 6 months. Moving on, NPC, another big block of calls went up. Baba, I think they were rolling some calls today, maybe adding some new into today's weakness. I mentioned XLU already. Utilities did see some calls that went up in the beginning of the day. They were right on those. We saw a big block of VIX go up. Now, keep in mind, people get nuts when they see this stuff because it is a big trade. But let's talk about this just for a minute. And again, I will try to use a little bit of my institutional trading experience, but look how far out they're going. We've seen this before. They're going out to 24 strike. That's a really far away. Could we get a bout of volatility that brings us up to to 20 or something like that in the VIX? It could happen, and they're certainly putting down a good chunk of money. They're putting down $2 million, but in the grand scheme of things, somebody spending just 50 cents per contract, it most likely is somebody who wants a volatility hedge. I know that seems crazy to people, but I don't know. Maybe it's this 50-cent VIX player that's going on too, but we don't know that person's overall portfolio either. And then somebody bought a little bit of these VIXies that expire tomorrow, looking for some volatility in the overnight market, I would presume. STM, and then I mentioned AMD already. There's a few other names too that were pretty small. I don't mention every single call buyer that hits the tape, but that's a few of them for the day. So my thoughts that I gave the trading room earlier is that we have a Friday tomorrow. Fridays, we've had 6 Fridays so far in 2020. 5 of them have been red. 1 of them have been green. I'm sticking with the odds. I don't see that there's any point, in my opinion, to risking a lot of money tomorrow with those odds. And it's also going into a 3-day weekend too. So I think that the traders don't want to carry too much risk, especially when China may or may not be representing wrong numbers for for the coronavirus. So again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh because nobody wants to see people get this thing. But I'm just talking from a relative trading perspective. I don't want there's no point. Like my P&L is very close to 2020 highs. I've had a really nice start to 2020. There's no reason for me personally, and I'm not giving out advice here. There's our risk disclaimer. But for me, there's no reason to try to push it to make money into going into a 3-day weekend when we know how normal weekends, regular 2-day weekends, traders have not wanted to really hold a lot of risk, and they de-risk a little bit towards the end of the day on Friday. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I talked about this on Thursday too, and Mondays have been really good. Like if you want to look at the performance here just for a quick second. Um, right? If you look at the performance of like Friday and then Monday, if you want to buy, put on an SPX trade at the very close of Friday, that's not a bad idea considering that the Mondays, except for this one here, didn't work so well, but negative. So I think you would have to wait to see if you get a decent sell-off on tomorrow. Something more than like maybe a 0.5% to the downside, because the last 2 weeks. Again, I'm jinxing it because this doesn't nothing is 100%, but the last two Fridays, this Friday was down 1.8%, and then rallied back 0.75% and rallied, of course, throughout the week until we got to Friday again last week. So it is what it is. We'll see if that materializes for tomorrow, but I think it's good to kind of think about things. Also, because again, risk management and being smart is better in my opinion than any particular like option trade, right? Which I know that doesn't get stressed on Twitter. Everybody wants the next, ooh, they want calls in this one. Everybody wants that, but I think managing your risk is so important. Not getting, being, again, just being a little bit smart. So I think that is important. What else did I want to talk about? Was there anything else? I think that's it. Just strategy. Now, if we don't get a pullback tomorrow and the market rallies, so be it. I'm okay with that too. I don't have to be. I can miss a little bit of a rally, but all in all, I do have positions on. What I'm saying is just I'm not getting super overexposed, and especially with option trades, right? Stocks are a little bit better in my opinion, because you have a bad day or bad couple days, you could lose the whole premium in your trade very quickly. All right, guys, so that's it for today's video. A little bit of a shorter one. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you back in the trading room tomorrow.